Hello friends, Jeff here from Squadron. Welcome back in our second chapter of the Mosquito build. If you missed out on our inbox review about the Mosquito, please check out our link in our right hand corner. If you missed out on our first chapter of the follow along build, check the link underneath it. If you want to pick up the kit, it's still available at our shop. We made it easy for you. Just click on this link here. So let's get started. As I mentioned before in my previous video, the instructions are very straightforward and easy to read. Now when we talk cockpits, you need to take it easy with it. I mean, cockpits are very tedious, but to me they are the heart of the airplane. So take at least your time, don't rush it, just enjoy it. Be careful removing the pieces. A good suggestion would be that you line up the sprues. Whenever you start a kit of this size, of this magnitude as a Mosquito, you have to work with a lot of sprues. We're talking about 20-25 big sprues with a lot of pieces, and it can be very annoying when you go through the sequences and the steps, especially when you make small parts, when you have to clean up small parts, when you have to glue different contraptions. It is very desirable before you start the project to line up your sprues. Let's say that you need parts from sprue A, you need parts from sprue C, from sprue X. When you're building the actual cockpit and you have to look for those sprues and look for little parts, it can be quite annoying. So my suggestion would be, before you start the project, to line up those sprues. So you already know that they're close, that they're handy, and you don't have to look for it. Any super weld will work. I like to work with Squadron's plastic weld, since it's basically the middle of Tester's plastic cement and the 10X. Our plastic weld is just somewhere in the middle. So it doesn't dry as fast as 10X, but it dries faster than the plastic cement from Tester's. It's also very smart to put your glue out of the way. Many times I run into the problem when I picked up a sprue and I accidentally bumped it into the bottle and the bottle fell over, and I'm sure everybody experienced this moment where the glue is all over the place. When you're really unlucky, the glue will hit your model and then you really are in trouble. Cutting boards are a must-have for whatever task you're doing. They come in handy for whatever you want to do during your model projects. I mean, they're perfect to roll milliput, they're perfect to cut plastic sheet, they're self-healing, and they just have the right amount of give to cut photo etch. Tamiya photo etch is very thin and it's easy to remove from the spread. The Tamiya cockpit does not really need a lot of detail. All the detail of the cockpit is really well rendered. It's amazing how Tamiya has evolved through the years. Just for video purposes, and to speed up the process, we left out the sequences where we cut it, where we sand it. It's basically the same for every part. When applying the superglue, be very careful where you apply it and the amount you apply. Use little things, like I'm using a little sprue to apply it, sometimes the tip of my knife, or whatever you can find that will suit the purpose, just use it. Just be careful that you don't overuse superglue. Here I'm removing the original plastic cables that run to the sidewall in the fuselage. They are going to be replaced with the milliput ones. Again, try to clean up the parts as good as you can. Use a Scotch pad. I like to clean up all my parts. I built several segments of the cockpit, so I like to, before airbrushing them, I like to cut up all the parts, glue all the parts together, and then it makes it easier to paint. The same thing with the photo etch. Basically all the work is done the same. I like to use talcum powder. Just any generic baby powder will work. The effect on the milliput that it won't stick on your hand or on any surface. So always keep a little box handy. You don't need to put a family pack on the table. Just a little tiny box or candy box that you find, and add some talcum powder in there, so you always have it close. It's basically like a baker makes his dough. Although the Mosquito cockpit and the Tamiya Mosquito is very detailed and it doesn't need a lot of help, I still like to add some extra details just to make it more organic looking. In this case, I prefer to use milliput for all my cables and wires. A free floating cable, a free floating wire here and there, well placed, makes a hell of a difference. I run out of milliput, but my first medium of choice is milliput. But here I use the Avis putty, which is just as good to make all my wires and my cabling. Use a piece of plastic sheet that you cut into a certain shape and you just roll it over the string of milliput, and that way all the cables will have the same thickness. You just have to cut them up. Then you're just applying them with a moist brush, some water, and maybe around where the cable attaches the plastic or the plastic contacts, you reinforce it with some plastic weld. Sometimes it doesn't work and you have to do it all over again. Always make sure that you have your tools ready. My basic tools are basically a scalpel, a really fine tweezer, either with a curved edge or a curved end or a straight end, a sanding stick, preferably the medium, and a brush, and of course your super weld. When you look at the instruction sheets, most companies, they will tell you to do steps in sequence, but sometimes it's not always the right thing to do. Personally, I like to work in sub-assemblies, just for painting purposes. Now around the cables, when you look at pictures, some of the cables they have like cable straps or clamps. I make those also out of milliput. I'm rolling like a little bottle, a paint bottle or glue bottle or any round surface, and make the milliput really thin. Then I cut a strip from it and then I just cut little segments of it. Each segment I place strategically somewhere where two cables met or two cables join, or just to make it look like the cables are attached to the fuselage. Now it's time to make the two fuselage halves, the front section and the back section, together. I think they're going to do a lot more versions, the way they split the fuselage up. Also the joint is very sharp, there's not a gap, it fits like a glove. Try to be very careful during this step in applying the glue. Sometimes during the gluing process you have to be absolutely careful with the application. But sometimes it's just not enough glue, and when there is a possibility that you would run into problems later on during the assembly, it's always wise to add some extra glue on the back of the assembly, like for instance on the two joints of the fuselage. You apply a minimum on the front, but then when you turn the fuselage over, it's always good to apply an extra bead of plastic weld. It really doesn't show at the front, but it's really reinforced on the back. So you're absolutely sure that that weld will hold. In Tamiya's case, there's a lot of photo etch that has been used in the cockpit, but my suggestion is to keep it separate and airbrush it separate. Don't glue it on there, because also Tamiya provided some decal instrument gauges. These have to be sandwiched between the photo etch and the plastic instrument panel. So it is very smart to just clean them up, put them aside, and once you get to the point that you are ready to airbrush, just airbrush them separately, and then you can apply them after they're painted. It makes life a lot easier, and the result will be a lot more cleaner and crisper than when you glue everything in place and you still have to paint it. Although the fit of the fuselage was almost perfect, I found out after the glue dried that there were a little tiny bit of cavities here and there. In this case I used milliput because I had it handy, but you can use our white putty just as well. Okay guys, this wraps it up for the cockpit. I got everything prepared in sub-assemblies for painting and weathering. Remember, don't rush it. A well painted and built cockpit is 50% of your success. So, thanks for watching. Jeff V here, signing off.
Dry run first.
Okay, I got it now. Again, welcome to Squadron. Please take a moment to subscribe and browse our channel archives.